Hi, my name is Dr. Christian Conte, and I help people deal with lots of different emotions. But one emotion that I find people have a particularly difficult time dealing with is anger. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself angry and not really known why you were so angry? Have you ever found yourself snapping at loved ones quickly and not really sure where all that anger was coming from? If you have, then two things. One, you're not alone. And two, this video can be very helpful for you. Human beings have consciousness, and consciousness is a fancy way of saying awareness. And there are levels of awareness. There are levels of consciousness that we have. The lowest level of consciousness that we have is something called shame. And I believe that one of the reasons why shame is the lowest levels of consciousness is this. When people live in shame, they act out of shame. I specialize in working with people who commit violent crimes, and one of the things that I found is this. When people have said to themselves or believed that they were a no-good piece of nothing, then there's not much to stop them from continuing to hurt others. Why not? After all, they have nothing to lose. When people live in shame, they act out of shame, and that's the lowest form of consciousness that we have. Not far above shame is something called depression. And one of the reasons why depression is so low on the scale of consciousness is this. When we are struggling with depression, we are primarily focused on the past. In other words, we are primarily focused on a time period that we cannot get back. We're focused on things that we simply just cannot change. Not far above depression is, on the scale of consciousness, is something called anxiety. Anxiety is that awful feeling in your sick feeling in your stomach and the racing thoughts. And it said that people who struggle with anxiety primarily live in the future. In other words, they are more focused on things that might happen, things that haven't happened yet. So shame, depression, anxiety are the lowest levels of consciousness that we have. Now watch this, because this is very interesting. Above shame, above depression, and above anxiety is something called anger. And here's why this is interesting. Because what this means is this. We would rather be angry than struggling with anxiety, depression, or shame. It's almost as if it's easier to lash out than to have to struggle and wallow in the places that anxiety, depression, and shame take us. So unconsciously, we lash out at our loved ones. We're not even sure why. Well, maybe it's because we're struggling with anxiety and we don't want to be dealing with that anxiety anymore. So as we lash out, we experience a release, and for a moment, that feels better. Now, here's the good news. By no means are these the epitome of the levels of consciousness. There are more. Above anger are lots of different levels. I'll sum up all the different levels, though, with one word. And I'll sum it up with love. And partly I'm going to sum it up with one word because I can only stack blocks up so high on my desk. But within love, within this category of love, of consciousness, are things like compassion, knowledge, creativity, peace. And here's what this means. If we can have compassion, if we can have some knowledge, then the next time that we are dealing with, let's say, anxiety, instead of lashing out at someone else to experience that release, what we can do is this. We can go up to that person and say, I'm really sorry, but I'm struggling with anxiety right now, and I can feel myself snapping out at you, but it has nothing to do with you. Imagine the difference that could make in your conversation. Imagine the different level of consciousness that could take not only you, but also your loved one to or in that relationship. If you like this idea, and you like some of these teachings, please take some time to visit my website at drchristianconte.com.